Hello class. In this video, our goal is to be able to write number sentences from word problems. Now, before we get into the actual video, I want to talk about a common misconception that happens a lot when students work with word problems, and I think the biggest one we see is that there's specific words or terms to look for. Now, some students will say, oh, I saw the word total, that automatically means add, or I saw the word take away, that automatically means subtract. And you really have to kind of throw out the idea of looking for words and instead look for different ideas. So I'm sure you're familiar with this little quadrant graph that I've given you. Now, there are four operations. You can either add, subtract, multiply, or divide. And what we do here when we add is we're looking for combining similar terms. And what I mean by that is we're adding apples with apples or miles with miles. All right, we can't add like 5 apples and 6 bananas. They have to be the same unit or the same term. For subtraction, we're looking if we are finding a difference in something or finding a change in similar terms. Again, they have to be the same unit. Apples with apples, miles with miles, money with money, things of that nature. Now, multiplying is just repeatedly adding something. So it might tell you, oh, this car is traveling 15 miles per hour. Where will it be 10 hours from here? So you know you'll have to add 15 with 15 with 15. And with dividing, you want to see if you're evenly splitting something up. And the important thing is that you're doing it evenly. So we'll get into a couple examples of each of these problems, and we'll kind of talk about what operation takes place and why we use those operations. Now, something that's very, very, very important. You always want to make sure that your answer makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, if your answer says that there's a submarine floating in the air, there's a positive number, obviously you might have done something wrong. The other thing is you want to determine whether your integers will be positive or negative. Positive ones are pretty easy to find, but negative ones will have phrases like lost, descend, debt, owing something, spending money, or under something. Those signify negative integers or negative numbers. So our first example states the temperature in the morning was negative 10 degrees. In the afternoon, it was 35. What was the change in temperature? Now, I can see here that I'm looking for a change, so I know I'm looking for the change. So I know that's automatically going to be subtraction. So this is part of where you have to realize that you have to check if your answer makes any sense. So I know it's going to be subtraction, and I know I'm dealing with negative 10, and I'm dealing with positive 35. I know I'm dealing with subtraction, and there's only two subtraction problems that I can use here. Now, one of them is going to be negative 10 minus 35. The other one is going to be 35 minus negative 10. Now, only one of these number sentences is going to be correct. The other one is not going to be correct. So we're just going to do a little bit of guess and check to see which one is correct. So I'm going to solve both of these. Now, negative 10 minus 35 is the same thing as saying negative 10 plus negative 35. Which is negative 45. And this one we have 35 minus negative 10, or 35 plus 10, and that's positive 45. Now we look back into our problem. The temperature in the morning was negative 10, and in the afternoon it was 35 degrees. What that means is the temperature is getting warmer, so I know my answer is going to be positive. So this is the number sentence I am looking for. Now, in our next problem, we have that the temperature in the morning was 12 degrees. In the afternoon, it was negative 13 degrees. What is the change in temperature? Again, right here, we can see that we're dealing with 12 degrees and negative 13. Those are our two integers. And that we're looking for a change in temperature. Now, I know it's going to be cold, so my answer better be negative because the temperature is going down. It's getting colder outside. So there's two options I can use here. I can use 12 minus negative 13 or negative 13 minus 12. And if I rewrite these two addition problems, I see 12 plus 13 and negative 13 plus negative 12. I see here that I have positive 25. Here I have negative 25. I'm going to be using this version because this shows me that it's actually getting colder at night. Or it's getting colder in the afternoon because we're showing a change of negative 25 degrees. In our next example, we have that the Bears lost 7 yards over 4 plays. What are their total gains over the 4 plays? Now, again, this is where you really want to identify whether you have positive or negative numbers. I can see that the Bears lost 7 yards, so that's going to be a negative value of -7. And they did this over positive 4 plays. Just 4 plays happened, so it's just positive. Now, I want to know what their total gains were over those 4 plays. Now, I know that every single play they're going to lose 7 yards, so I'm repeatedly adding -7, -7, -7, or I can just do -7 times 4, which is going to give me -28 yards. And again, this makes sense because I know they're going to be losing a lot of yards over those plays. So my number sentence here would be -7 times +4 equals -28. In example 4, I see that Charles spent $440 in 20 days on food. How much money does he earn each day with respect to his food? So I know he spent $440. That's a negative amount to Charles because he doesn't have that money anymore. That's money that he spent. Now he does this for 20 days. All right, that's +20. And we want to know how much money he earns every day on food. Now, I'm looking for how much he's spending each day. So I'm splitting all of this money, this $440, evenly over the 20 days. So this means I'm going to be using division. So I'm going to have -440 divided by 20, which is going to give me that Charles spends -$22, or that's what he earns. He earns -$22 each day because he's spending $22 on food each day. Next, we have that Emily has $350 in debt and she has to fix her car, and the bill is $500. She pays using her credit card. How much money does she have in her account? Now we can see that Emily is in debt $350. That's a negative amount. She pays her bill using her credit card and spends $500. Again, that's another negative amount. And we want to know how much money she's going to have in her bank account. Now, I know this seems a little silly, but we're actually going to be using addition here because we're going to be adding the $350 and we're also adding the $500, the -$500 that she spent. We're adding her debts together. And when you add a negative with a negative, we're just going to get more negative. So we have -$850, which makes sense because she was already $350 in debt, and now she has to spend even more just to fix her car. So she's going to owe in total $850 to the bank. Our next example, a submarine is 1,500 feet below sea level. It ascends at a rate of 10 feet per second. What will its elevation be after a minute? Now you have to read this question carefully because there's actually 3 integers we're dealing with here. The first of which is going to be this 1,500 feet because that's going to be a negative amount since it's below sea level. So -1,500 feet. It ascends at a rate of 10 feet per second. So ascends means it's actually going up. So that's positive. And it's going to be doing this for a minute. So there are 60 seconds in a minute, so I have +60. Now the first thing I want to identify is how much the submarine is changing. And I know I can figure that out by using multiplication because after 1 second, the submarine rises 10 feet. After another second, it rises another 10. After another one, it rises another 10. So this is repeated addition, but instead of using a repeated addition, I'm just going to use multiplication. So 10 times 60. Now, we still have to include this 1,500. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually add here the -1,500. And this is because we're combining similar terms. We're combining the number of feet that the submarine, we're combining the elevation the submarine is at with how much the elevation is changing. So if I solve this problem, this is actually a 2-step problem. First thing I'm going to do is multiply 10 times 60. That's going to give me 600. plus negative 1,500. And when I add negative 1,500 plus 600, that's going to give me an elevation of negative 900 feet, which makes sense because they're rising, but they yet haven't reached the surface, so they're still underwater. Our last example is that Sami has $300 in her account, so that's a positive 300. She spends $6 a day on cookies. How much money will she have after a week of eating cookies? So there's three integers we're dealing with here. In this case, we're going to have a positive 300 because Sami still has money in her account. She spends $6 a day on cookies. That's going to be a negative amount because that's money she's spending. And we want to know how much money she's going to have after a week of eating cookies. Well, there's 7 days in a week. That's positive 7. So again, I want to see how much something is changing by. What's the change as far as how much money she's spending? So I know every day she spends $6 on cookies and she does it for 7 days. That's going to be repeated addition. So I'm going to use negative 6 times 7 to tell me how much she's actually spent. I'm also going to be combining this because this is money that she's spending. This 300 is the money that she already has. I'm going to be adding these together in order to find how much money she has left. So negative 6 times positive 7 is going to give me negative 42. 300 plus negative 42 is going to give me $258 because she's only spent $42 on cookies. Now, if you have any questions regarding the assignment, always feel free to come in during lunch or before school or just message me through Schoology. Thank you.